What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to examine Uncanny X-Men issue 140 by all of these fine people. This is the conclusion to the Wendigo storyline that we began in the previous issue, and I like that after the Dark Phoenix saga, which was pretty long, we are getting a very small, tight two-part storyline. And I've said before, with the Dark Phoenix saga, you can divide that into 3 smaller sub-arcs, but still, overall, that's like 9 issues, and here we get a quick and dirty 2-issue storyline. It's a nice change of pace. I like that. We're not doing a whole bunch of 9-part stories all in a row. We have a 9-parter, then we have a 2-parter, and then we've got the Days of Future Past storyline next. That's another 2-parter. I like that. So with this issue, we start off with Colossus clearing a field, doing some farm work, basically. And this scene is famously what got John Byrne to decide to leave the X-Men book. He was apparently frustrated that he felt like his contributions to the book were being overlooked / undone by Chris Claremont. And he pointed to this scene as the straw that broke the camel's back. He drew Colossus very easily pulling this tree stump out of the ground. You look at the art, and Colossus is smiling while he pulls this stump. And then Chris Claremont writes captions and thought balloons for Colossus where he's saying, like, oh, it's so hard, my heart is going to burst and my steel body will crack. And then he finally pulls the stump out. And what was going on with this collaboration, they called this the Marvel method. It went all the way back to the early 60s. The writer and artist would get together, and they would kind of talk out the very broad plot points of an issue. And then the artist would go and draw all 20-something pages of the issue, and then those pages would come back to the writer, and then they would do the finer script, the dialogue and captions, etc., that they may not have necessarily had in mind when they were roughing out the plot with the artist. And as I understand it, that was the method that Claremont and Byrne were using here. But Claremont, I guess he kind of felt like he had final say on what went on in these issues, and so he has Colossus struggling to pull this tree stump out, and then John Byrne felt like that was undercutting what he intended with the art, where Colossus wasn't struggling. And it seems like a really petty thing to divide this partnership. I will say Byrne and Claremont did some excellent X-Men comics together, but it is a miracle that they were even able to do one issue together, because the ego on just one of these gentlemen, let alone both of them, I'm surprised that they are both able to fit on the same planet. That's how egotistical they both are. I love the work of John Byrne, I love the work of Chris Claremont, but I feel like both of them really are just too big for their britches. So I am very surprised that this partnership lasted as long as it did. I mean, they worked on X-Men, but even before that, they worked on the Iron Fist series. They did a little bit of work together on Marvel Team Up. I know that was where they concluded their Iron Fist storyline. And then this is not the end of their partnership. They did work together on a JLA storyline in the early to mid 2000s. It was a story that reintroduced the Doom Patrol into the DC continuity after they had been shunned from the DC universe, I guess, because the Doom Patrol was a Vertigo thing. I don't know how any of it works, but they worked together on that. And then very recently at a Comic-Con panel, one of the cons, I don't remember which one, Chris Claremont referred to Byrne as the Canadian. He wouldn't even refer to him by name. So apparently there is still some bad blood between the two, although not enough for them to, I mean, they're still apparently able to work together, or they did at least on that JLA storyline in the mid-2000s. Maybe they weren't actually in the same room. Maybe Claremont just wrote a script and then someone at DC sent it to Byrne. I don't know. But anyway, this scene apparently is the straw that broke the camel's back. And then Angel pops in and he talks to Colossus a little bit, and then he's thinking about how, you know, I misjudged Colossus. I thought he was just a dumb country hick, but he is wise beyond his years. And I guess I should have said something in my examination of the previous issue about Angel now being part of the team. I get the feeling that they thought, well, Banshee left the team not that long ago, and now Jean has been killed, so we need some characters to kind of bolster the team a little bit. And we have Kitty Pryde here, but now we we have Angel kind of replacing Banshee, so to speak, and Cyclops, who also left at the end of the Dark Phoenix saga. And I don't really have any thoughts on him. I've never really cared about Angel. I really disliked most of the 1960s X-Men comics, and it felt like the majority of the dramatic heft of those comics was the love triangle between Angel, Jean, and Scott. And now, of course, Jean is dead, Scott is gone. So what do you do with Angel? He's been dating Candy Southern for a while now, but I get the feeling that they thought, well, no one's using Angel, so let's throw him in the X-Men book. But I don't think that Claremont or Byrne really had any idea what to do with this character. Just speaking for myself, I just don't really care about him that much. There are a couple of times that I think that Angel is interesting after he is turned into the Dark Angel, or, well, he's Archangel, I guess, in the 80s, after Apocalypse kind of transforms him, and after he leaves Apocalypse, I feel like there is some interesting potential with him there, and eventually we will get to that. I will be examining issues of X Factor as we get there, and then in the post Rick Remender stuff, where he kind of had lost all of his memories and did not know who he was, I actually really liked what was being done with him there, and then that was kind of done away with as well. So really, I don't have much to say about Angel. He's here. He won't be here for long. I don't remember when it is, but eventually Angel is going to decide that he has had enough of Wolverine, and he will just leave. And that's probably because I don't know what the chronology is. I know in between Angel leaving the X-Men right after Giant Size issue 1, he and Iceman, they joined the Champions. I'm pretty sure that was after Giant Size issue 1, and then after Angel leaves, whenever he leaves coming up, he and Iceman will join the New Defenders, and I think Beast will be with them. So there is going to be some stuff going on with Angel coming up before we get to X Factor, which is going to be like 5 years. This is in 1980 right now, and it'll be like 85 when X Factor issue 1 happens. But yeah, Angel's here. That's about all that I have to say. And he tells Professor X, hey, I don't like that Wolverine guy. And Professor X says, well, I have to try. I'm trying to make the world a better place, and I can't just turn my back on Wolverine. He has the potential to be a really good leader. This is the first time that we see any hint of that with Wolverine. Not just with Professor X just saying it, but we also get to see it in action with the Canada stuff. But before I get to that, Storm goes to pick up Kitty Pryde from her dance lessons with Stevie Hunter, and she says that she just feels uneasy around Stevie Hunter. And when I first read this issue many years ago, this was probably almost 20 years ago, maybe. When I first read this issue, I thought, oh, okay, interesting. Stevie Hunter probably has some kind of sinister backstory that will eventually come out in some issue that I never read. Because when I was first getting into X-Men, I was occasionally reading what was coming out at the time in the early 2000s, and then I was getting whatever X-Men trade paperbacks that were in print that I could get my hands on. So, The Mutant Massacre, Dark Phoenix Saga, Days of Future Past, The Fall of the Mutants, Inferno. I was reading all of that and missing a whole lot of stuff in between those books and after those books. And so I thought maybe, and I was also going through like the 3 for $1 bin at my local comic book shop, and I remember one of Claremont's last issues on Uncanny X-Men was part of the what do you call it? Not the Shadow King storyline. It has a name. I don't remember what people call that storyline, but it's when the Shadow King had possessed various members of the X-Men, and Colossus had been possessed by the Shadow King, and he was trying to kill Stevie Hunter for some reason. I remember reading that issue, and I was thinking, okay, so Stevie Hunter is still hanging out with the X-Men, like, 10 years after she's introduced in this story here, but no, there is no sinister backstory with Stevie. What I should have picked up on when I first read this, when I was like, it was a long time ago, was that Storm feels almost like a mother to Kitty Pryde. She feels very protective over Kitty. It's a little weird that she's already developed this kind of motherly relationship with Kitty this soon. It kind of reminds me of how Jean, after she, I'm trying to think of of when there was a point where Jean and Storm were fighting at JFK Airport, and Storm said something to the effect of, you and I are like sisters, Jean, why are we fighting? And at the time, I remember thinking, that's weird, they haven't really been together, spent that much time on screen. It's weird that they're trying to say that these two are like sisters with each other, and now we're kind of getting that again, where the issues want to just go ahead and say, this relationship exists. They don't want to take the time to establish this relationship, which is disappointing. But anyway, Storm feels like a mother to Kitty Pryde, and now she sees Stevie as a rival for Kitty's affections. That is what is going on here. Maybe they could have been a little more clear with it, or maybe they were trying for subtlety, and as a young teenager, I just didn't pick up on it. But yeah, that's what's going on here. Kitty uses her powers out in the open, and Storm chastises her. And I guess I will say, like I said in my examination of the previous issue, I do not like Kitty Pryde. I will say she is written like a very arrogant, haughty young teenager. She thinks that she's invincible and the world is her oyster. She uses her powers out in public and says, well, nobody was around, it's okay. And so that is consistent with how a 13-year-old would act in public if they had superpowers like that. So that's about all that we get with these X-Men. Then we jump to Canada, and Nightcrawler has a very extended fight scene with the Wendigo. It's mostly just him trying to run away from the Wendigo. And, I mean, I like Nightcrawler, but it is a miracle that he even survived 3 panels against the Wendigo. He's trying to fight it, which basically just means, like, running around it in circles. He's trying to run away from it. He says, I can't teleport, it's too risky. And he says, like, you know, I don't know this forest very well, and so I wouldn't be able to see where I'm teleporting, and I could, you know, teleport inside a solid object, and that would be no good. And I'm thinking, okay, then teleport up. You can see up. You can see, okay, there's a tree branch up there. I'll teleport on the tree branch, and then from there, I can jump onto other tree branches, and eventually he does that, and then the Wendigo tears the tree down that he's in. And so, not Nightcrawler's finest hour. He eventually gets thrown, like, 3 miles into the cabin that Wolverine, Snowbird, Shaman, and Guardian are in, and somehow he doesn't break every bone in his body. And then the rest of this group, they're talking about how are we going to find Wendigo. Wolverine says he'll track him in the morning. Then he like steps out in the cabin, and it's like, oh, there's Wendigo like 3 inches from the cabin. I don't know how Wolverine's super smell didn't sense that the Wendigo was right there. And then there's a little bit of fighting. Mac, Guardian, he's thrown like way away, and then the Wendigo, he threw a truck, and so a fire starts, and Shaman has to put out the fire, and then Wolverine and Snowbird, they go to track down the Wendigo. Snowbird does tell Wolverine she doesn't like him, and that's probably because she is friends with Mac, and Mac is a little angry at Wolverine because, according to Mac, I guess from his point of view, he and his wife Heather, they saved Wolverine. They found him out in the wild. He was savage, and they brought him in, and they nursed him back to health, which basically means brought him back into the mind of a civilized man. And then I guess they thought, you owe us, so we are now going to turn you into a Canadian secret agent. And then it got to a point where Wolverine said, no, I'm sick of this, and then he quit, and then the Canadian government said, we don't accept your resignation. And at this point, I'm not really sure what canonically where Wolverine got his adamantium. If they are saying that the Canadian government itself was responsible, and therefore Mac and Heather are kind of sort of responsible as well, because later on, in 91, I think, Barry Windsor Smith writes and draws a Weapon X storyline at Marvel Comics Presents. The series, it was a weekly series, and in that series, Mac and Heather are not in any way affiliated with the Weapon X program, and that was not by Chris Claremont or John Byrne, so they did not have anything to do with that. So I don't know what their intention was at this time. If Mac and Heather were indirectly responsible for Wolverine getting his adamantium claws, or if that was something he already had when they found him in the woods, and then at this point, we're not supposed to know how Wolverine got his claws. That is how it is now. Now, if you look at Wolverine's chronology, the Weapon X storyline by Barry Windsor Smith happens, he escapes, and then they find him sometime later, and they turn him back into a normal human man. And then they say, hey, you're a Canadian secret agent now. And so, the last time that, when Guardian, at the time calling himself Weapon Alpha, when he attacked the X-Men, he said something to the effect of, or maybe it was when the first appearance of Alpha Flight as a whole, the Prime Minister said, we have put too much time and resources into Wolverine for him to just walk away. And so you could read that as we put the adamantium into him and we are not going to let him just walk away. Or it could be all the training that they did with him, and maybe, you know, the time and money spent on turning him into a better secret agent. That is how you can read it now, with the Weapon X storyline by Barry Windsor Smith, keeping that in mind. But anyway, we do get to see Wolverine kind of using some common sense here. At one point, he tells Snowbird, you go back and find Shaman, who is putting out the fire. You go find Shaman and Guardian, and then bring them back here, because they found Wendigo. He had led them to where he had this woman and her baby. He says, you go find them, and Snowbird says, why me? He says, because I can't fly, and you can get there a lot faster. So Wolverine, even though he is presented as like just a loose cannon who at any moment he might murder Nightcrawler for no reason at all, we do get to see here that he is, like Professor X says, he has the capability of being a really good leader. And so a year or two later, we will get to see Wolverine kind of demonstrating some of these skills a little bit in later issues. And it won't feel like it's just suddenly happening, like Kitty Pryde and Storm's immediate relationship just suddenly happens. It doesn't feel like that. It actually feels like it's organic and it's actually earned. But we do get, and I guess I should, maybe I'll just talk about it whenever we get to whatever issue it was where Kitty Pryde fights the Ingarai demon. There's a scene in that kind of ties in with this. I'll get to that when I get to that issue. It's going to be in like 3 or 4 weeks. But anyway, Wolverine sees that the Wendigo is about to eat his prey, and so Wolverine eventually is able to kind of knock out the Wendigo. He does mention to himself that anyone else he'd be fighting would be dead in seconds. But the Wendigo has a supernatural curse that basically prevents anyone from actually killing it. And so Wolverine is able to knock it out, but not flat out kill it. And then the rest of Alpha Flight show up, and then Snowbird turns into an actual Wolverine. And she is able to knock out the Wendigo because it had woke back up and it attacked Wolverine. And then she defeats the Wendigo, but then she is in the mind of a Wolverine. And she thinks to herself about how any animal she turns into, she has the mind of that animal. And a Wolverine is noted for its ferocity. It's a little thing. It's not a big animal, but it can take out a bear that's like 3 times its size just for sheer meanness. And she is very vicious, and Wolverine is basically able to kind of talk her down, and she turns back into her human form. And we get a little bit of will they, won't they here with Snowbird. She starts the issue saying, I don't like you, Wolverine, but you are a good leader. I can see why Mac wanted you to lead Alpha Flight. And by the end of the issue, she's saying, I wonder if I'm ever going to see him again. I hope so. And unfortunately, nothing ever came of that, which I think that would have been an interesting pairing. She has kind of got this animalistic side to her with all, with her powers, and then Wolverine does as well. And it would be fun to kind of, have this cross-team romance going on with Wolverine still staying with the X-Men and Snowbird being with Alpha Flight. And then, he comes and teams up with them for a little one-parter or something like that. That would have been neat to see. But this is kind of like several issues ago when Cyclops was kind of sort of in a relationship with Colleen Wing. Really, it was a one-sided relationship. She had the hots for Cyclops, and he didn't really feel anything for her. It feels like they were just testing the waters, or how early on in the Cockrum stuff, it felt like they were trying to tease a romance between Storm and Colossus, and then that kind of went nowhere. And so maybe this is just the creators seeing, like, I wonder what people will think of this. Let's just throw this out there and see what happens. But they are able to, Shaman is able to magically turn the Wendigo back into a human. He wasn't able to do it while the Wendigo was conscious, but he's able to turn him back into a human. And this happened in the Hulk series before Wolverine was introduced, where this guy, Georges Baptiste, he willingly turned himself into the Wendigo. This is that guy, and he is arrested because he willingly did this to himself. And so all the crime crimes that he committed, they're on his hands. And so he's arrested, and then Guardian says, Wolverine, you don't have anything to fear from us. Consider your resignation official. We're not going to keep coming after you. And then Nightcrawler, just out of nowhere, says, by the way, Wolverine, he got arrested for killing people. You should be ashamed of yourself for killing people. And Wolverine kind of explains himself, says, like, I'm not going to just go and murder somebody who's just walking down the street. But if somebody comes at me with fists, I will come at them with fists. And if they come out with a gun and try to kill one of my loved ones, I will return the favor. And so we get kind of Wolverine's code of conduct spelled out for us here. And I guess I'll just go ahead and get into it. Jim Shooter, weirdly, he wanted Wolverine to be the kind of guy who had a hair trigger fuse, and at a moment's notice, he might just try and kill Nightcrawler. A few issues from now, Nightcrawler kisses Mariko on the cheek, and Wolverine just, like, unsheaths his claws and comes after Nightcrawler, and he's just livid. And apparently that scene in that issue, I'll talk about this again when we get to that issue, apparently that was because of Jim Shooter. Jim Shooter said that Claremont and Byrne were turning Wolverine into a sissy, and I'm assuming they're talking about this issue here, where Wolverine says, I'm not gonna just kill just some guy. But you go back and look at the Hellfire Club goons, he very clearly is trying to kill them, and Jim Shooter, many years later on his blog, he said that Wolverine tried to kill these guys who could not do any harm to him. And of course, at this time, Wolverine's healing factor is not what it is now. Now, you could drop an atomic bomb on Wolverine and he would survive. There is a story, it was just called Logan, drawn by Eduardo Riso, where Wolverine is in either Hiroshima or Nagasaki and survives an atomic bomb blast. In these issues, like when you get to the Fall of the Mutants, Wolverine has been stabbed a few times, and someone says, Wolverine, if you don't sit down and rest, you are going to die because you have to give your healing factor time to heal you. And so at this time, Wolverine is not the invincible superhuman that he would become in years later. And so Jim Shooter saying, like, Wolverine didn't have to kill those Hellfire Club goons, that was unnecessary. Those guys, there were like 5 of them, and they had guns, they probably could have killed Wolverine, and so his actions make sense. But Jim Shooter, weird, this is why I say it's weird, he did not want Wolverine to actually kill people. He told John Byrne and Chris Claremont, Wolverine did not kill those guys. You have to throw in a line of dialogue that they survived this encounter with Wolverine. And so a little while later, I don't remember when it is, those Hellfire Club guys, they eventually become the first Reavers for Donald Pierce, all because Jim Shooter wants Wolverine to have the capacity to kill at a moment's notice, but doesn't actually want him to kill. And so I like this characterization that we are getting in this issue. This feels real. You can have characters like Superman and Batman who do not kill. I don't want Batman to be a killer. I like that Batman does not kill people. But with Wolverine, I don't mind. His reasoning makes sense to me. And Wolverine is not just going to go down to the Green Goblin's house and stab him in the throat when he's eating dinner with Harry Osborn. He's not going to do that, but if the Green Goblin is about to blow up a school bus full of children, Wolverine says all bets are off. And that feels fine to me. He's not a psychopath that Angel says he is. And I do feel like it's kind of weird that Angel never did understand Wolverine. And maybe that's just, like I said, maybe they just wanted a placeholder person in a team until they could figure out someone else they could add in a team, and they really didn't have any interest in Angel. It's not until the Chuck Austin run in the early 2000s that Angel finally says, Wolverine, I'm sorry for being such a butthead when we first met. And Wolverine says, yeah, it's fine. And now I think those two are two peas in a pod. They've been on a couple of X-Force teams together, and you know, there's no more bad blood between them. Let's just be honest, Angel's probably upset with Wolverine because they were both sweet on the same girl who didn't care about either of them. Yeah, let's just say it. But anyway, that's about all for this issue. I like this storyline. Nice and simple, a little short 2-parter, nice and sweet. So I will hopefully be back next week. If I have time with my work schedule, I'll hopefully be back a week from now-ish to talk about another issue. So in the meantime, let's consider this issue examined.